So I'm marrying an Englishman from England. And his sister-in-law is an absolute nightmare, guys. Get this. She's telling her brother, aka my fiance, to cut me loose. Get rid of me. I'm nothing worth investing in. You know why? The reason she hates me, and the only reason she says she dislikes me, is because I'm Irish. Before I tell you this story, let me say that hatred will get you nowhere. Eventually, karma will come back around and bite you in the butt. My parents are proud Irishmen and Irish women. They always were proud of their heritage and taught me to do the same. I was born and raised in Ireland, so I didn't have much prejudice growing up. Now, I did hear about a lot of hatred towards the Irish, especially from the English. But my parents always taught me that not all English people were like that. I didn't hate the English. They were people just like us, you know. The only time I would dislike somebody for being English is if they had a problem with me for being Irish. After I graduated school, I headed to London to go to university. I moved there, and the first time was out of Ireland. The tiny town I grew up in Ireland was very different from the big, fast-paced city of London. However, I adjusted pretty quickly. While I was there, I saw a little anti-Irish sentiment, but it wasn't too much. Most of these negative attitudes towards the Irish were fading, much to my relief. It did not mean I still did not experience it, but it wasn't really common. Once I graduated from university, I decided to stay in London and got myself an office job. My friends and I rented an apartment that wasn't far from my job. Soon after I started working, I ended up meeting an Englishman named Michael. He was 8 years older than me, and though I never was aware of this then, we first met at a coffee shop, frequented during our breaks and before work. One thing led to another, and soon I found myself giving Michael my number. Even after I found out Michael's age, I didn't care. Michael was a little more hesitant, but I was pretty persistent. When Michael first introduced me to his family, I was nervous, but his parents were lovely. It was his sister, Laura, who was the problem. She was cold and snobby to me, but I brushed it off as her being an overprotective older sister. Eventually, I learned that Laura was quite a proud English woman, to the point where she made these snide comments about the Scottish and Irish. According to Laura, they were less than I was surprised because no one else seemed to have these views. Michael explained his sister had always been very strange, and that was the best way to explain it. The first time Laura tried to break us up was by pretending she got a nasty email from somebody claiming to be me. This was easily proven wrong because it was not my email address. When this did not work, Laura tried to become the victim again by vandalizing her own car. But I clocked into work, which I was able to prove. She ramped up her efforts, but after trying to play the victim, she tried to be the bully. Whenever we were around each other, Laura would make these snide comments about my Irish heritage. Anytime anybody called her out on it, she started throwing a literal tantrum. Eventually, I just left and said I wasn't going to put up with this crap. Michael stood by me, and we would still see his parents, but not during times when Laura was known to be there. She did worm her way back into her parents' good graces, and sometimes would even show up when I was there. I know what some of you may be thinking. Why didn't I have a spine and take myself out of the situation? Well, I loved Michael, and he always stood up for me against his sister, no matter how much of a fit she would throw. The longer we dated, I'd say the more easily I was able to brush off Laura's comments. Then came the day of the engagement. You see, after dating for a few years, Michael popped the question, and I, of course, said yes. Oh, Laura, she was so mad when she learned about the engagement. I guess she was still hoping the two of us were going to break up, but this could not have been further from the truth. It did not matter what she tried to do. I intended to still go through with the marriage at the same thing, could go with Michael. To try to be nice, I invited her to the wedding reception. The two of us eloped because we didn't want issues and have a wedding reception after. As you can imagine, it did not take her long to start throwing a fit right there at the reception. She begged my now husband to get an annulment. It was not too late since the two of us had not been married for long. Michael told her that he wasn't going to end the marriage under any circumstances, so we continued with our wedding party. Laura was taken home by her husband, who apologized for her behavior. I had no idea why he stuck around her. Maybe it had to do with their son, but that could not be a very healthy environment for their child. My parents had been warned about my new sister-in-law, so they would not be surprised when she started stirring up her crap. They did pull me aside and ask me if I wanted to marry into this family, but I assured them that I did want to. I loved Michael too much to let him go. It did stink that I had to deal with Laura's behavior and attitude towards me just because I was Irish, but it was a cross I thought I had to bear. One would think that now that I was family, Laura would try to bury her dislike of Irish people to get to know me, but she did not do that at all. All she did was double down on the fact that she didn't like me, and Laura was going to make sure everyone knew that. So, Michael and I decided to finally keep our distance from Laura. We would still meet up with his parents though, and I thought it was a better idea to invite them to our home. It was better if they came to us rather than us going to them, so we could avoid seeing Laura for the most part. However, it wasn't like I could avoid Laura entirely, and during family events such as holidays, birthdays, and other celebrations, we were forced to see her. It was only a few times a year, but sure enough, whenever we saw each other, she would start her snide comments and I would clap back, calling her ignorant, which would send Laura into a tailspin. Then she would start saying proudly that her precious son James would never marry an Irish woman. He would marry an English woman just like everyone before him. James was such a great guy. I was proud to call him my nephew, and thankfully he did not catch his mother's attitude towards Irish people or anyone who wasn't English. James seemed more embarrassed than anything, and I couldn't blame him. I mean, the next few years that passed were quite tiring. Year after year passed, and Laura did not change her attitude at all. However, I did not see that much of her anymore. I was thankful I didn't see her. When we learned that James was engaged to get married, all of us were happy. I was glad that James had found somebody, but was worried about how Laura would react because of how intense that she could be. She starts to brag about how her son was marrying a great woman. See, Mary, James' fiancée, was very bright and beautiful. She graduated early and started working at a law firm as a paralegal. The girl was smart. However, the thing Laura seemed to be excited about the most was the fact that she was an English girl. I thought it was so stupid to be excited like that, and, James marrying an English girl and not a dirty Irish girl like me. All that sounds, it should matter. I mean, come on. It should just matter only that James is marrying somebody who was a great person who loved him. Wouldn't that matter the most to you? If you asked anybody but Laura, they would say yes. But if you asked Laura, the answer would obviously be no. The bragging was making James uncomfortable, but he handled it well like he always did when his mother did something strange. It was around this time James announced that he had something to tell us. When he sat the family down, except his parents, I thought he was going to tell us that he and Mary were pregnant. Two of them were young, but both were hard workers and had a good support system, so there was no way they couldn't do it. If anything, they could do it. Instead, James told us something I did not expect at all. Mary was Irish, not half Irish or quarter Irish. No, Mary was full-blooded Irish. Her parents have been born and raised in Ireland. So had Mary, but the reason she didn't have an accent is that when she was about 6 or 7 years of age, her parents accepted a job in England. From there, they moved to England, and Mary's lived there ever since. Her accent mostly sounds English. So Laura had no idea Mary was originally from Ireland. It made sense why James had lied about this for so long. If his mother knew that he was marrying an Irish girl, she would never let him live it down. But he loved her, so James did not want to keep up the lie any longer. Besides, once everyone heard her family accent, then they would know the truth. So, a part of me felt so smug and vindicated, I just did not tell or show this to James. The only person I showed this to was Michael. To think that for years Laura had given me crap about being Irish and bragged about her son never going to marry a nasty Irish girl. Now her son was engaged to be married to an Irish girl. The best part? Laura has no idea. See, Laura was going to go ballistic when she realized that Mary was Irish. As smug as I felt, I also felt bad for them because the moment she found out, she was going to flip her lid and make things very, very difficult for Mary. However, James told us he was already prepared for this moment anyways. He was going to tell his mother through a simple text message and see what happened from there, and I assured my nephew that we were always going to be there for him no matter what. If his mother acted up, then we would help him deal with it. It was about time somebody stood up to Laura, and I would not back down to keep the peace. This was her son. James and Mary came over to our place that day that they sent the text message, and it didn't take long before his mother blew up his phone, but he did not answer the phone right away. Eventually, he did, and everything she said was horrible. I don't even want to repeat it. It was most of the stuff that she had said about me over the past few years. But this time it was directed to her son's fiancée, and this was the woman he wanted to spend the rest of his life with? Mom, I'm marrying Mary whether you like it or not. Either accept Mary and stop calling her names, or I will not let you stay in my life anymore, Mom. This includes you not going to the wedding. And then here came more insult. It led to James hanging up on her and telling us that he didn't think his mom was going to be invited to the wedding. Michael and I did our best to comfort him because doing it to me was one thing, but to her son? You know what? I think that this has simply gone too far. What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here. So today's story is very interesting. However, update number 1 titled, "My sister-in-law blames her son marrying an Irish woman, so I taunt her." Yep, that update's about to come straight to you guys right now, and you're not going to believe what's going to happen. If you're new to the channel, take a second, hit that subscribe button, and let's jump into update number 1. My sister-in-law, Laura, if you can remember, hates Irish people. I'm Irish, and when she learned I was marrying her brother, she did everything she could in her power to end the relationship. The joke's on her because we've been married for years now, and it came out recently her son was marrying an Irish girl too, though Laura thought Mary was an English girl the entire time. After James told the truth, Laura went ballistic. She ends up calling James several times and kept harassing him about marrying an Irish woman. One time she called me and I didn't answer. It might have been immature, but before Laura could start berating me, I said something I've been wanting to say to her for ages now. "I guess you're not so superior, now that your son's married a dirty Irish woman, She called me a name, but it didn't deter me. "And we knew about Mary for weeks before you did. You were played like a fiddle, you fool." She starts to cuss me out, but I hung up on her. I knew it was immature of me to do this, but like I said, I could not resist. This is something I wanted to say to her for a while now because she deserved it. Michael got an earful from Laura as well, however, he told me he didn't blame me for saying what I'd said. James wasn't even angry with me. It felt so good to get it off my chest, and still I wasn't going to do anything like this again under any circumstances. Going down to her level was super upcoming of me. Besides, the more I taunted her, the more issues it might cause for the rest of the family, and out of everyone, I was most worried about James. This was his mother, and she might be a terrible person, but from what I'd seen, Laura did seem like a decent mom. Of course, if Laura was willing to cut off her son for this, then it did not make her a good mom. The wedding's coming, so that this is going to bring about a whole new wave of drama. I know Laura's going to try her darndest just to ruin it for James, because in her mind, he can't marry his fiancée Mary. I don't want him to have to go through what I did for my own wedding. While I was able to deal with it, it took a while, and all I know is Laura can do whatever she wants, but she is not going to stop the wedding. It's going to happen whether she likes it or not. Update number 2. Sister-in-law crashes the wedding rehearsal. So, I just got home from the rehearsal dinner, and let me tell you what happened. It's crazy. I can't believe the lengths my sister-in-law's willing to go just to prevent her son from getting married to an Irish woman. Everything was all right at first. Michael and I arrived at the rehearsal dinner, and all of us were having a good time. Laughing, making good memories, the food was delicious. The decorations were good, and everything was just really awesome. I couldn't have asked for a better rehearsal dinner to attend. Then, about an hour before it was supposed to end, we started hearing shouting from outside. Before we could even react, Laura burst into the room and starts going straight towards Mary, and she was screaming at her, telling her that there's no way she was going to let some Irish woman marry into her family. So at this moment, James stood up and told his mom to leave. Her husband, my brother-in-law, was hanging out near the door very, very awkwardly. I bet that he was the one to drive her here too. As much as I liked my brother-in-law, he did have to stand up to my sister-in-law. He just let her walk all over him, though, at the same time. When a sister-in-law tried to take a swing at Mary, my brother-in-law grabbed her and told him that they had to leave now before the police or somebody was called. This was a strong possibility, especially since she tried to hurt Mary. Mary had gotten up and was seeking comfort from her parents, and I could only sigh in relief once Laura was taken out by her husband, but let me tell you, she fought him. At one point, it seemed like she did even hit him in her attempt to get away. So James blocks the door. It was a private dining area they rented out in a restaurant, so we could not keep it like this for long. But if it kept Laura from getting back inside, then you know what? I think it's worth it. For a few minutes, we just sat there listening to Laura absolutely scream from the outside of the restaurant. So, you know what? Until somebody else called the police for a noise complaint. Some of us, like me, watched from the window as the police told her she either has to go or she's going to be arrested. Laura did end up leaving. Much to my dismay, she was not arrested. I just wanted her to suffer a little bit after all the crap that she just pulled. How could a grown woman continue to act like such a child? I doubt this was the update you were expecting. Hell, it wasn't the update I expected to give. The next update I thought I would give would be whatever happened at the wedding. But for her to show up at the rehearsal dinner was not what I expected. As she left, James and Mary talked. I was wondering if they were discussing whether or not that they should still go through with the wedding. They told us that they were still going through with the wedding and nobody was going to stop them from spending their entire life together, even if it was James' mother. I did suggest that they elope like Michael and I did, but they told me that they didn't want to do that. They wanted to stand up in front of their family and friends to declare their love for one another. Well, whatever they wanted to do is up to them. The family's going to support them no matter what. However, one thing is for certain. I know Laura is going to try to ruin the wedding. There's no way that she's going to stop just today. Well, I'll update you guys soon enough. Update number 3. Sister-in-law does not give up. Hey guys, if you're reading this and guessed that sister-in-law was going to start her crap by trying to crash the wedding, then you are correct. First, we had the actual wedding where they said their vows, and it was a small little church. But sister-in-law simply never showed up. You know what, we were thankful at first, but surprised. I kept glancing at the door, expecting that she was going to show. James explained that his father had told him that he was going to make sure his mother did not leave the house for the day. I had no idea how he was going to stop him, but hey, if it kept her from ruining James's wedding, then so be it. After the vows were said, we went across town to where the after party was supposed to take place. I was excited because it looked great. Whoever James and Mary got to plan and decorate their wedding did a hell of a good job. At some point during the wedding, I was getting cold and just realized I had to grab a jacket. So I told Michael I was going to head out of the car to get my sweater. I'm glad I decided to bring one just in case, and while I was going towards the car, a very familiar vehicle passed me. It was Laura's car. She did not notice me and just drove past, going straight towards the venue. Before I even knew what I was doing, I called and texted my husband to warn him. I don't know how she got her husband, but she was on her way to cause havoc right there at the wedding. Michael thanked me for letting him know and just hung up the phone. I grabbed my sweater before running back to the venue just to avoid getting into a fight with Laura. I went around a long way and came back. So, to make a long story short, some of Mary's family went to the front door to act as a bouncer. They were her brothers specifically, and Laura tried to push her way through. But they refused to let her in, and Mary's brothers were all very tall and broad-shouldered, whereas Laura was smaller. There was no way that she was going to be able to make her way onto the venue to ruin the wedding anyways. Well, during her tirade, I heard her mentioning my name and saying that this was all my fault, and you know what, all I could do was roll my eyes. It was ridiculous that Laura was still trying to blame me for this. The only thing that I had done was love Michael and want to start a family with him. How did that make this any of my fault? Eventually, the police had to be called and sister-in-law was forcibly removed from the property. It threw a dent in the celebration, but I have to say that Mary handled it like a champion. She kept her head held high and made it clear that this party was going to continue even with the disturbance that was caused by Laura. I made a joke that the reason Mary was so tough was because she was an Irish woman. This got a lot of laughs out of everyone, but hey, I did mean what I said, you know. Only an Irish woman would be able to put up with all this crap and not go insane from all the stress. After we got home, I had no idea how sister-in-law made out. I mean, even her parents were past the point of defending her, and I guess if Laura acted that way towards their son's wife, it's okay, but against their grandson, Laura's actual son, well, that's a different story. I was pretty bitter towards my in-laws, but try not to let it bother me too much. Michael always stood up for me, so that was all that really mattered to me. Final update. Brother-in-law is sick of sister-in-law's crap. Hey guys, honestly I thought the last update was going to be the last one for me. I mean, the wedding, it went off without an absolute hitch, so I didn't think that there was ever even going to be a need to come back here, but let me tell you, some things that have, well, happened. It's wild how all this had gone down because I never thought that it actually would happen. It came out soon after sister-in-law tried to crash the wedding that she locked her husband in the bathroom. That's right, he had to smash the window to get out, and by the time he did, we already had the situation under control. Things had been going all right that day. Sister-in-law was just behaving and acting like she was truly sorry. However, when he went to the bathroom, she made it so he would not be able to come out by blocking the door. He was without his cell phone, so there was no way to contact us to let us know that she had locked him in. My brother-in-law, well, he just kept shouting for Laura to let him out, not to do this, please. But she said she had to make sure this wedding was not going to happen. And if it happened, then she was going to have to convince their son to get a divorce from the dirty Irish woman he married. So, this is how she managed to get the venue where we were having the after-wedding party. My father-in-law and mother-in-law said that Laura ended up spending the night in jail until she was released without incident. She came home and brother-in-law told her that he could not take her crap anymore. He said in no uncertain terms that they were getting a divorce. Well, again, it might make me a little immature, however. I cannot help but feel Laura deserved it after everything that she's done. Plus, it was about to be damn time my brother-in-law got his act together and divorced her. For too long, he had just stood by and let her walk all over him, as well as everybody around her. Again, my sister-in-law seemed to blame me out of everyone. I was the one who brought this plague onto her family. I should be sorry for ruining her life, and I wanted to block her, but instead I went online and bought a huge Irish flag. Then I made sure that it was sent directly to the house. Petty, yeah, but I wanted to show my sister-in-law that she might not like the fact that there was Irish in her family, but we were here to stay. So, the last contact I had with her was a huge message about how I was so disrespectful. It was at that point that I blocked her, and I have not heard from her since, guys. My brother-in-law is continuing with the divorce. He's currently staying with James and Mary, which is good for him. I know that he mentioned that he actually might just let her have the house and everything in it because he wanted to have a clean breakup from her. Honestly, I wouldn't really blame him for doing that. Who would want to be involved with Laura any more than you have to be? Who knows what's going to happen with Laura anyways? All I know is that Michael and I are preparing to move to Ireland after I get a job offer there. He can work remotely, so he's totally on board with the move, much to my relief. Well, the best thing is, we'll put a lot of distance between Laura and me. Sure, the whole family doesn't talk with her anymore, but the farther away I am from her, the better. It wasn't like I set out with the intention of going back to Ireland. This job offer I got was just really good. Whatever ends up happening to Laura is her own fault. She did it to herself because she was so hateful, so you know what? She deserves no pity. I mean, let's be real, guys. Laura was an absolute nightmare to deal with. Imagine having such hatred inside your blood simply because somebody was born in a different country from you. It was really weird, the vibe that she was on, and I want to know what you guys would have done in this situation. I mean, we're not only talking about OP here, we're literally talking about Laura's kid too. She went the exact same hatred route on his significant other when she found out that, well, she was from Ireland. So guys, let's talk about this down below in the comment section. My name's Mr. Reddito, and if you guys want more daily videos, you have 3 options. Number 1, subscribe to the channel. Number 2, subscribe to Mr. Reddito Animated. And number 3, subscribe to Mr. Reddito's Revenge. You subscribe to those 3 channels, and you're going to have so many juicy drama stories, you're not going to know what to do with them. Have a great day, guys. I'll see you tomorrow. And of course, remember, it's cool to be kind. Peace.